The actress and Tony Award-winning choreographer Ann Reinking has died.
Mourning the loss of a legend, Tony Award-winning choreographer, actress, and dancer Ann Reinking has died.
She performed on Broadway for nearly 30 years, first gaining fame in Chicago in 1977. Nearly 20 years later, she reprised her role as Roxy Hart, opposite co-star Bebe Neuwirth.
There she is on stage with Chicago co-star Bebe Neuwirth. Reinking was known for her bold style of dance, seen in the revival of Chicago.
Ann Reinking was 71 years old.
Ann Reinking was a Tony Award-winning choreographer, an iconic Broadway actress and dancer. She was the star of movies like Annie and all that jazz. What you may not know is that she was a passionate arts educator, an artistic director, a mentor to several generations of young people. This is that story. This is her story, told by us, her students.
It's an unspoken law or rule in the world of dance. You pass on what you know. This particular craft is at its best when it's passed from one person's hands to the next.
With all the opportunities she had, she chose to funnel so much of her passion and time into building up future generations of artists. And now I realize you can see it. You can experience Ann's investments on stages and screens and in classrooms all over the world, shifting the world the way she taught us, the way she showed us.
I saw an advertisement in a dance magazine for Broadway Theatre Project and saw that Ann was on the faculty. And I thought, well, I might as well audition. So I sent in a tape. I did Who's Got the Pain from Dan Yankees. I met Ann Reinking at Broadway Theatre Project in 2000, and I remember her walking into the room and just being in awe of this legend. She radiated this positive energy. She was eloquent. And she was hysterically funny.
Thank you. It took a lot to get into this.
Where do I start with Ann Reinking? I remember the first time I saw her. I went to the ABT studios for the audition for Broadway Theatre Project. I remember going up to the 5th floor, I think, and peeking through. There was like, you know, a little hole about that big, peeking through and seeing Ann practice Hot Honey Rag. I was like mesmerized. I mean, I had already known who she was from Annie, danced around my house like I was Grace Farrell. It was that moment that I saw her in her black mock turtleneck, gorgeous pants that were tight around just below the calf, and then it kind of belled out a little bit. You just saw her gorgeous legs and just all of her lines, and it was just the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen.
Ann Reinking enters the room, and it sent a chill down my spine because, again, being in the same room with somebody that you had always dreamed of working with and getting that opportunity was absolutely terrifying. I was number 12, they called my number, I was at the center of the pyramid, 1, 2, 3. The first 8 counts of music, my feet slip out from under me, my body hits the deck and I face plant, full on YouTube fail video. And I remember looking up, Annie stopping the music, in the silence, yelling, "Are you all right?" And I remember thinking, why is this happening to me? And also feeling like the coolest person in the room, that Ann Reinking had just stopped the world to make sure I was okay.
Being a teenager is just a darn tough time. It's just all there is to it. I still remember it. I try to block it out. And so they're grappling with being, who am I, where am I, what am I, which is what they would do under normal circumstances. And then on top of that, they are on their own in a 3-week, what is jokingly called a boot camp for singing, dancing, and acting. And it actually is probably quite true. They start at 8:30 in the morning and finish at 10:30 at night. It's pretty merciless. You have to really like doing this. Otherwise, it would just be, you know, the camp from Hades. But they seem to like it a lot because they did it all day and all night with 3 breaks for absolutely scrumptious cafeteria.
I'll try to distill the experience of being one of the first 50 members of the Musical Theatre Project of Tampa, and then returning 3 more summers. I learned how important it was to do everything in your power to make something the best it could be.
I learned so much from Ann. It shapes everything I know about being a performer and who I am, and also as a teacher as well. She could be hard, she could be demanding, impossible with those demands at times, but she never lost her sense of humor. And I think what she taught me is that you become what you model. If you are modeling mediocrity or laziness, that's what you embody. If you are modeling excellence, if you're constantly striving and raising the bar impossibly high, we may never actually reach that particular goal, but the joy comes in the process of trying to strive for that.
I didn't think I would get picked, but I was picked. And we had the greatest time ever. I can't even begin to tell you. I was in a number that was choreographed by Miss Ann Reinking, and that was memorable. I still remember the song till this day. Old New Orleans is a great big old southern town. With hospitality, you will surely find. I just remember having the time of my life, and suddenly at one point I got into a little trouble. I broke curfew. They were like, hey, you broke curfew, you're acting mischievous, we're gonna have to send you home. And Ann Reinking saved my life. She said, Jerry, I see something in you, but you gotta see it too. I'm gonna give you a chance to stay and prove yourself. And I worked as hard as I could and made sure I didn't break any more rules. And after that, about a month or 2 later, she invited me to the Gregory Hines show. This experience was mind-blowing for me because Gregory Hines has been my idol since I was, 2 years old.
There's a story that is infamous among those of us who were at MTP in the first few years. We were running through the showcase and it was late at night. It was probably 11 at night. At one point, Ann stood up and she stopped the rehearsal course.
Oh, okay, let's stop there.
She made the musicians stop, she made every dancer stop, she made everyone watching stop and listen. She told us that you have a great responsibility as a performer. She said, it is like you are a physician and the number is your patient. And then she said, "You just let the fucking patient die. We're gonna take it from the top. Places." And everybody scattered to places, and when I tell you, none of us could breathe. That woman knew how to make you hear a lesson. It was one of the greatest gifts of my life, to not mince words like she did. She passed on to us as teenagers the privilege and the responsibility we have as performers.
I first attended MTP, or BTP back when it was called MTP, in the summer of 1994, and I was in 2 pieces that I remember. The first was a little song directed by Ann with myself and 6 other people, and we sang, If I had $1 million, tell you what I'd do. I'd give some part of something to everyone, a nickel to UNICEF and to me. I'd take my brother down to the store and buy him shirts over take mine. Go to the street where they're lining up for welfare, buy everybody don't own mine, oh yeah. And it was a really, really sweet piece. I remember just it being like this real feel-good, sweet piece.
So one of the first songs that I did at the Broadway Theatre Project was Low Down Blues from the musical Eubie by Eubie Blake, sung by Gregory Hines. Now, I knew who Gregory Hines was way before I came to the project. He was somebody that I looked up to coming up as a kid. And knowing that he was going to be there that year, and I was going to get a chance to sing the song that he sang, I knew I had to handle my business. And under the direction of people like Ann Reinking and Deborah McWaters and Mary Walkley, they brought out of me something that I didn't even know I had in myself. Going through a process with someone at the Musical Theatre Project, especially Ann, it's a work of art. I was always like, hey, what's up? What's going on? And she was always like, hey, what's up? How you doing? You still doing that thing? You're gonna be in my number later, right? You're gonna give me that soulful stuff? You're gonna do the riffs? You're gonna do the runs? You're gonna do your thing? I'm like, yeah. And I mean, she was just always a very happy person around me. And I loved that because it was always a breath of fresh air to come into one of her classes. I trusted her to be able to do some of the things that made me feel uncomfortable. So I was like, it's not really my comfort zone. It's not really what I do. But if you're smiling and you're supporting me and you're saying, give me the attaboy, I'm gonna do it. And I feel cool with doing it. If it was somebody else, I'd be like, no, sorry, can't do it. Not my thing. I'm gonna be in the back.
Probably out of all the years I attended the Broadway Theatre Project, my first year was my most favorite performance, and that was in a song called Wrong Note Rag. She taught us such a sense of comedy and humility and how to be humble. It was pretty amazing. Ann Reinking changed who we were as artists, young, aspiring professionals. She gave us a sense of maturity that maybe we weren't ready for at the time. It developed, it came out, and in everything I do and everything I've ever done, I have always lived by her words: to be versatile, to do everything. She taught us this sense of excellence that I don't think you can acquire from just any old place.
One of my favorite memories was during the second year I was there. There was a talent night. It had nothing to do with the final showcase. Me and 2 of my friends, John Hawley and Patrick Wilson, were the MCs for this event. And at one point, I presented Ann Reinking with a can of Spam, as though it were some kind of award. It was a gag, of course, but she was visibly and audibly moved by this can of Spam. And she said, "You guys don't understand. When I was just starting out, trying to break into the business, I lived on cans of Spam." And I was taken aback by this expression of truthfulness and vulnerability. An anecdote I knew nothing, none of us knew anything about. This moment of humanity. I'll never forget that, Annie. Nor you. Years later, I appeared as Sir Bedivere in the Broadway production of Spamalot. Coincidence? I don't know.
I've got a lot of memories of the lovely Ann Reinking, but there's one that sticks out to me above all others because it resonated through my entire career. And I mean that. And it was something very simple, and she probably wouldn't even remember that she said it to me, but it happened in 1993. I was a camper at the Broadway Theatre Project, and I already, at the time, felt a little old. I was on the older side. I think I turned 21 that summer, and a lot of the time I felt like, because I was in theater school between my third year, I was an actor and a singer, and yet there were all these kids and much younger than me that were incredible dancers, and I felt really out of place, but I knew that this would only make me a better all-around performer, so I embraced it, and I loved every second that I had to take her classes.
In all my wandering, I've talked to all kinds of people. Fancy cinema stars, fake evangelists, politicians, morticians, and I have reached the conclusion, while I can look like though I try and I try, never once met a guy that I didn't like.
One day, after class, I was in the hallway changing, and I think she could probably tell that I was internalizing some of my frustration. Like, I just felt like I was a little beat down, but I was trying really hard. And she said to me, she came up and said, "You know," I turned, she goes, "You could be a dancer." And I just kind of looked at her and kind of tried to smile it off, and she just did that, "If you want," and walked away. Nobody else really heard it, and it didn't seem particularly profound. She just said, "You could do this if you wanted to." But what I realized, and I went back to that moment so many times in my career, because as actors and as performers, all we want is to feel comfortable, right? You want to feel comfortable to fail. You want to feel comfortable, obviously, to succeed, but you need to be in a space where you can give everything that you've got and feel open. And she provided that environment. She wasn't telling me I was going to be in a dance company, but she knew that if I worked hard at it, I would succeed. And so I carried that with me throughout my entire career. I still do, honestly. And I always love joking with people, "Well, you know, Ann Reinking thinks I can be a dancer," so.
By the end of 1995 summer season, the project had outgrown Tampa Preparatory School on the campus of the University of Tampa, taking a different direction and continuing to grow at the University of South Florida. Finally, in 1997, the musical theater project that we knew and loved then became Broadway Theatre Project, which is still going strong today.
attended BTP in 1998, 99, 2000, and 2001. Some of the best 3 weeks of my life. When I was 16 years old, I was honored to dance lead Frug. relationship changed with Annie that year, and she really became a mentor and a champion of my talents. Don't get me wrong, I was still very much starstruck by Annie, and I have the journal entries to prove it. On July 23rd, 2000, workshop was fab. Gwen surprised us all and showed up. And today, Anne asked for Tyler, Haynes, and I to go down the floor first. And I wrote on the 24th, Anne played with my hair and had me tell my school adventure to the TV guy. Anne gave a speech that made me cry because it was about being able to watch us grow and see how we've matured and how we have lifelong friends from the project. And at rehearsal, Anne let Noah wear her wrap, and now her pants smell like Anne. No joke. Anne gave me the confidence and the tools that I use every day. And this little girl from Nebraska earned her equity card a month later, and I made my Broadway debut at the age of 21.
She devised a segue that had to get us from New York from On the Town into Skid Row from Little Shop of Horrors, in which hundreds of frenzied New Yorkers crossed all around the stage and then exited every which way and every which wing until just one tiny, busy New Yorker remained. Me. She made a little vaudevillian step, an Ann Reinking step, just for me. And built a long percussive sequence on the spot with Jim Rungo, our wonderful drummer. I walked all over the stage, appearing again and again to almost exit but not, and then turn on a dime and march a little more and then turn again, till I finally went all the way upstage, turned the corner sharply, walked all the way across the stage, bringing on the cast of Skid Row, till they were lined up across the upstage edge, ready for their number, and I continued on my way, exit stage right. It wasn't that I had a solo, it wasn't that I wanted to be a star or that I wanted to show off, it was that Annie trusted me. She entrusted this moment to me. This tiny, wordless moment in which 13-year-old me strutted around the stage and said both so much and nothing at all. It was a lesson for me in character, physical comedy, mood, tempo, pacing, structure, flow, surprise. And it was as defining a moment in my life as I can remember. From that moment, no question, I wanted to be a choreographer, I wanted to be a director, I wanted to be a maker. I wanted to make some young dancer a moment like Annie had made for me.
Hello, I'm Megan Reinking. I was in a number called Shoeless Joe from Damn Yankees. I was the lead soloist of that.
Oh, I've got lots of ideas. Shoeless Joe from Hannibal Mo. Strong as the heart of a mighty oak. Shoeless Joe from Hannibal Mo. Lucky are we to be having him. Shoeless Joe from Hannibal Mo. Just when the future was looking grim. Shoeless Joe from Hannibal Mo. Took a long, long way to be with us today. With thumbs of steel like Hercules. Yeah. Sweet as good dreams.
That number, where it lined up in the show, was right before a big tap dance number, and all of the dancers that were in Shoeless Joe were also in that one. So she had to figure out a way to get everybody off the stage, change their shoes, and come back in.
The scene, as fresh as Listerine. He sneezed and flew away half. His master ripped up on a man. Go, 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 jump. Let's go, let's go.
And I was the only one really who I think that wasn't in that next number, so what made the most sense was to have me stay on stage, sing a reprise of the big solo of Shoeless Joe, while everybody else left, changed their shoes so they could get back on. I have zero filter on my face, so anything I'm thinking or feeling shows very clearly here, and my confused face, and my really trying hard to figure things out, also looks a little incredulous, judgy. She explained it very quickly. I'm standing there under a lot of pressure, really trying hard to figure it out, and giving her probably what looked like a "what are you talking about" face. My name again is Megan Reinking, no relation. Out of nowhere, she's yelling at me in front of the entire teaching staff. Everyone is there. Don't ever look at a director like that. Don't ever look like you're confused. Just figure it out. I am not sending you to New York City with my name, with that kind of a work ethic. So I'm giving you a huge opportunity, so don't f it up. I simply said, okay, I just want to know what you want me to do. I'm confused and I want to get it right. Now, she made a complete 180 after I responded like that. And I remember even walking off of the rehearsal space to some of the other students there and seeing their just stunned expressions. I remember somebody saying, "How did you not just burst into tears and run out of the room?" I would have run out of the room. And that hadn't occurred to me, because that wasn't personal. That was business. That was rehearsal. You know, that was about the work.
You know what I like about this is everybody's different. There's nobody who looks alike. There's no homogeneous look. It's just like life itself. I try and mix it right off the bat. There are all types of bodies, and I respect all the bodies. It's not this kind of body that wins, or that kind of body that wins, or this kind of face that wins, or that kind of face that wins. It all wins.
When I first experienced BTP, it was all very new to me, but the magic was every time that I opened my mouth, every time that I shared, the response was magnanimous. It literally transformed me. The response affirmed and confirmed me, and it was actually the first time where I felt that my Black body, my Black life mattered. Because the performing arts school that I was kicked out of, they would ask me, "Well, why do you always do something Black?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" "You know, by August Wilson, James Baldwin, why do you have to do things like by them? Why can't you do Clifford Odets or, you know, Shakespeare?" And I was like, "Well, if I don't, who will?" When I went to BTP, they welcomed all of me, like all of who I was and where I come from. And it was really magical for me. Annie was such a gift to this universe. I'm so fortunate that I got to experience her magic and her sacrifice to the younger generation.
You ain't never done nothing for me but take. Now, it's my turn. I'm asking for my gifts. I ain't soared through the rivers of Jordan for nothing. I ain't walked through the valley of the shadow of death to find nothing on the other side. I'm asking for my gifts. I'm standing here ready to collect. I'm standing here full lit by the fire of the Holy Ghost, and I ain't feeling nothing. I'm asking for my gifts. I want the salvation that belongs to me. I don't want nobody else's. I want what's mine.
When I did BTP, finding a quiet moment and talking to her, and she asked me about what I wanted to do with my life, and I told her that I didn't know. I wanted to be a performer, but I also thought maybe I wanted to be a writer. And she asked me why I felt like I had to choose between those two things, and she started rattling off a list of all the people that she knew who did both and more. And she just instilled in me. She kept saying to me, she says, "Don't limit yourself. Just try things. Just try, and you'll find out in the trying what you're capable of doing." And it was, you know, it wasn't the kind of speech from someone in her position to someone younger that felt sort of canned or rote or trite. It really felt like it came from her, and it came out of her ability to see me. And in that moment, I really did feel seen, and I felt heard and important. And I like to think that to Anne, in that brief moment that we had together that I was.
I was so impressed and challenged by the top high-level students around me, by the amazing teachers, and above all, I was impressed by the noble, genuine, generous, and super professional Ann Reinking, who taught us so much about musical theater. I especially remember the final show that we did. I was very proud to play a very funny role in a Monty Python's classic sketch, a role of a big movie producer.
Now, here is the star of the movie. I see snow. White snow. Oh, think of the colors. In the snow, I see a tree. Wait, I haven't finished yet.
You mean there's more?
By this tree, I see a dog.
And it was a new experience for me to play in English and to be funny in English. And I remember that it was a blast. The audience loved it and laughed so much. And I will never forget that experience, that amazing summer back in 2000 in Tampa, Florida. So thank you, BTP, and thank you, Ann Reinking, forever.
Someone begged her to do the Roxy monologue from Chicago. And it did take quite a while for her to give in, but she did. And hey, you can look at this monologue on a piece of paper. It's not like it's Shakespeare.
I'm older than I ever intended to be. And all my life I wanted to be a dancer in vaudeville. I know that. But no.
But when Ann Reinking opened her mouth as Roxy Hart, the room stopped.
You know, some guys are like mirrors. And when I see myself and I miss his face, I'm always a kid. Oh, you can love a guy like that.
I just had never witnessed joyous, bubbly creativity and brilliance up close.
I started fooling around. Then I started screwing around. We're just fooling around without dinner. Think about it.
Her approach to that little monologue has affected me my entire career.
The first time I ever took Annie's class, I was a kid. It was a Broadway Theatre Project. I was so excited, and I'm in a room full of like the best dancers in the country. She gave us a combination to do across the floor. And I will never forget it because it was not really a combination. It was basically just walking. It might have been an arm here and an arm there. By and large, it didn't look like dancing to me or what I knew of dancing to be. We all start to do this non-combination across the floor, and she's like, I know what you're thinking. You're all thinking, we can do quadruple pirouettes. Why isn't she giving us that? Well, I want to see what you can do with nothing.
Obviously, she's a legend. She's got star quality. You could feel it a mile away. She has so much heart, so much love and passion for the arts and for the future of the arts. Her passing the torch on to us is an unbelievable gift. And I don't think anybody's done anything quite like it before. I don't know if anyone will be able to match it. She set the bar incredibly high for how artists support the next generation.
The French have a saying, bien dans son peau, and it means good in your own skin. Communication is key, not only for the teacher to communicate this to a kid, but also for a kid to understand that what they have to say is valuable, that the techniques that they're learning in this school is only to give them more vocabulary to express themselves.
I met Ann at Broadway Theatre Project when I was 26 years old. I was kind of towards the end of my ballet career, and I really wanted to make the transition into Broadway. So my friend Sarah Ellen Minskoff recommended this school. She found it in the dance magazine. It was above and beyond my expectations, what I was exposed to in 3 weeks' time. So much so that when I went back to my ballet job, I made it a point to work on my voice for about 2 years with Mary Walkley, working on my voice, getting ready for the transition, hopefully into Broadway. I was so inspired by the incredible students that were there ready for work, and many of them have gone on to incredible careers. My first roommate was Lorin Latarro, who is now a major Broadway choreographer.
Annie's teachings really had a lot more to do with a lot longer than just my time at Broadway Theatre Project with her. It was watching her have a full career, watching her have her own ups and downs, watching her persevere, sometimes being in style, sometimes falling out of fashion. And Annie just kept going, kept teaching, kept working. See when you're in the road that it feels a lot as an artist, that things, that there's lots of stops and turns and zigzags, but it's when you look back at a long, long life and a long career that you see just how much you've done and how much you've accomplished and how much she has also passed on all of this work.
And yet to me, what is this quintessence of dust? Man delights not me. No, no woman either. Though by your smiling, you seem to say so.
So I am eternally grateful to the great Ann Reinking for not only her dancing and her teaching, but her continued lessons that I think all of us will come back to with each stage of our own artistry. We'll see another part of what she has taught us down the line.
What a piece of work is man, how noble in reason, how infinite in faculties, in form and moving, how expressed and admirable, in action how like an angel.
One of the things I'll always remember about Annie is for the performance, and of course she has the greatest legs. I mean, no one will ever top those legs. And so for the final performance of BTP, she would always wear like this kind of big sweater, but then this like micro mini skirt, and woman rocked it. I mean, nailed the mini skirt look, and to the point where I realized, thinking back, I have always worn a mini skirt to premieres, be it a mini dress or a mini skirt. I totally stole that look, and I now wear mini skirts to all my premieres.
Thanks, Annie.
The picture that I submitted of me with Anne, even talking about it, I'm shaking because it took all my strength to ask her for a picture. All of it. I was so scared of her. But I really wanted to be able to document that I had been around her. That's how much I respected her and how much she inspired me. And thinking about it, I start shaking again, and I'm that teenager again, going up to Anne, shaking and saying, Anne, can I please have a picture with you? And her being like, of course, Crystal. It's like, oh, she said my name. Like, she talked to me. She was just my hero. And when she took that picture with me, I remember touching her hand and just feeling so much love and so much inspiration and happiness to be near her, just near her.
First met Annie when I was 15 at Broadway Theatre Project. And throughout my entire career, whether it was Broadway Theatre Project for years as an apprentice and then as an assistant, or through FOSSE, the first non-equity national tour to Chicago, where I luckily met my husband. Annie was a part of my life. She was a beautiful soul that inspired all of us, and I am forever, forever grateful for her teaching, for her technique, for her love, for understanding, and just her beauty of life.
I think James Naughton was teaching that day, and all of us were just hungry and tired, but we were very inspired, and we had just finished up. Anne was giving us some sort of like last minute information before we went off to dinner, and then we had rehearsals that night. We started to just, still listening, but we just started to gather our stuff, like our backpacks and our bags and our rollers and our shoes, and did not like that. Anne was very bristled that all of these young adults were disrespecting her that way. She stands up out of her chair and says, "Did I say we were done?" And a thunderstorm comes crashing into the auditorium right when she says it. That all of us are terrified. And Anne is even shocked by her own power. I don't even know. All of us stop moving, then start laughing because we were in for a lecture that day. But because that broke the tension, she just giggled and was like, "Go to dinner, you guys."
Annie, the first thing I think about is her energy. When she loved something that you did, oh my gosh, it was right there on the surface, and you could feel it because she was so alive, so present, so in the moment, and it was contagious. You wanted more and more of that, and we all worked so hard at Broadway Theatre Project to just give our best so that maybe we'd have just a little bit more of that bit of Annie, because it was just intoxicating.
Come down to here and turn around.
Ann called me out in a song I was singing, and she said, "You're still playing the coquette." Whoa. So I dropped the ingenue crap, and I took that direction with me everywhere after that.
While I only knew Annie for 4 or 5 years, I still think about her today. And I think about her whenever I start a new show. If I'm directing a new show, I often think about her in big life changes. I think about the work. I think about how passionate she was about getting the work right and how the true joy happens in the rehearsal room.
Here I am learning from Ann Reinking, learning passion, heart, love of the craft, and learning to love each class you're going to go to, each plie, neck roll, each vocal exercise.
And all my life I wanted to be a dancer. And Broadway, my own act. But no.
She really helped a lot of us pursue our dreams and do things that we never thought we were going to do.
I remember the love she had for all of her students, how she nurtured her students and recognized the talents in everyone, no matter what they were, and appreciated those talents. I remember specifically one day during a dance class that she wasn't teaching, but she came in to watch. We finished the combination, and she looked at us and she said, "No, you're not really hitting the precision and the detail." And from the chair she was sitting in, she shot her weapon-like legs out into this arched pose, and a shockwave went through the whole dance studio and just blew everyone away. And I think every dancer in that studio that day, their talents went up about 2 notches, just from that demonstration.
Now, quiet. I would be very happy if there's a star that comes out of the project, but I don't really care. What would make me the happiest is when I look at these kids down the line, that they can handle the craft of living.
Take a flying little blackbird.
One of my years at Broadway Theatre Project, I was assigned a sonnet, and I walked across the stage and I couldn't remember some of the words. Annie and some of the other faculty members were out in the house of the Tampa Performing Arts Center, which was the largest theater I'd ever performed or rehearsed in my life. I was so scared and ashamed and frustrated that I was having trouble remembering my lines. Annie just didn't seem flustered at all. She didn't seem bothered at all. She just seemed to have this faith that I would get it. She was very soothing. She didn't add to my stress. But she also didn't, cut the number. She didn't let me off the hook. But she really believed in me. I feel like what was most important was it created a reference point for me of, number one, I can make my mistakes and get back up on the horse. And number two, I can deliver under pressure.
So thy great gift, upon this prison throne, comes home again, from better judgment making. Thus have I had thee as a dream doth flatter, in sleep a king, but waking, no such matter.
I was doing Free to Be You and Me with 70 other people, and we were running around in an amoeba, of course. And then once we like nailed our traffic in, we were running the number, and I messed up and just like ran right into somebody. So we stop, and Anne just like looks at me. I don't know what I said. You know, she was just like, fix it. My eyes started watering, and she just looks right at me, straight in the eyes, like with her like big, scary, beautiful blue eyes, and says, "Don't you dare cry." Oh my gosh. Yeah, try not to cry when you're 15 and embarrassed and it's like you're the second time away from home. But that really, yeah, just snapped and stuck with me, and, you know, I think helped me become a professional.
The second year I came back, I was 15. The day that we got there, I found out that Miss Reinking had put me in her number. It was called Rag. She had just created it for the Missouri State Ballet. It was part of the Sweet Candor.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. These.
And it was goofy and it was fun. It was kind of like, you know, none of the very like sexy, sultry, FOSSE stuff that we know her for. It was much more silly.
I was able to serve as her dance captain and assistant down there on one of the ballets that she was creating. When she was working on this ballet with us, which I loved that she called this, you know, commercial dance style a ballet. It was just like, that was her world. That was her embodiment as a dancer. And she so valued technique.
What it meant to work with Miss Reinking. I had seen how exacting she was and how terrifying she could be. So I was terrified. I was terrified to be in this number, but I'd also seen the incredible joy and generosity and love she brought to every single thing that she did. I still don't think I've ever worked that hard in my life. It's because everybody in that room was so honored to be there.
What was great was when we were working together, she just kept advising me on how to be the best dance captain possible, how to be the best mentor possible to these younger and my age dancers of the time. It was just so impressive to watch her mentor every single one of us into creating the value system for the next generation of dancers.
I know, like myself, so many of us have a special place in our hearts for Miss Ann Reinking, and she means a lot to a lot of different people. People are going to remember her as an amazing artist, a mentor, a friend, a teacher, an inspiration. But she should also be remembered as an amazing comic. There was a year at Broadway Theatre Project where she loved Bonnie Bishop's impersonation of Mary Catherine Gallagher.
At the dorms, I guess we were all messing around, and I started imitating that skit from Saturday Night Live that Molly Shannon used to do. Mary Catherine Gallagher, she was the awkward teenager that would do really like physical comedy, but she'd always like fall over at the end and show her ass, or, you know, she'd get real nervous and put her fingers in her armpits and all this. Anyways, I was doing it for the kids and they thought it was funny.
Bonnie would get up and do it whenever we had a break or we needed some comic relief from our late night rehearsals. Well, Bonnie was gonna do it for workshop. I wish there was footage of it. Hopefully some will turn up.
I hope there's a video of that somewhere. First, I think Anne was mortified because she was looking at me, and, you know, I was doing the moves, but I was doing them as Mary Catherine Gallagher. And I think at the beginning, she was watching me like, oh my God, why is this girl dancing in front of anybody? How did she get into this program? I think Anne realized, oh, it's a joke. And then she just bawled her eyes out crying. She was laughing so hard.
And Ann Reinking decided to get up and do the impersonation right alongside Bonnie. Lesson in comedy, obviously. It was a lesson in giving yourself fully over to the character with no regards for your own safety. And it paid off in dividends, because still to this day, it was the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Accept anything other than incredible. And there was one number that all of the boys were doing to give a man enough rope. And I remember thinking that it looked pretty good, but it was not up to her standards. And she let it go another week, and she looked at it again after it had been rehearsals for another week, maybe not even another week, maybe a couple of days. And it still had not come as far as she wanted it to be. And she said, okay, we're pulling it from the show. And she said it with just, you know, it didn't matter how much time had been put into it, how much effort. It was not up to her standards. Therefore, it was not going to be put into this production. And that really stuck with me, that the product that we are producing, it doesn't only say something about us as the performers, that it says something about our producers and the creative team that are putting it together, and that we only want to be showing our best work. And if it isn't our best work, then it needs to go back to the drawing board, and we need to continue working on it until we get it right.
There's so many fun things. One lesson that I always think of too is Anne, she was never afraid to move slow. Now, look, if I danced like Anne or looked like Anne, I'd probably move really slow too. I would spend as much time on stage as possible. But she knew how to build something slowly that would create suspense and intensity, and even it could be a comedic moment that built up to it slowly. She could really milk those things. She would always say, protect your downside. In other words, like, it's not good to just be good at what you're good at. What aren't you good at? What needs work? Like, bring that up. Because you are all of that. You are that whole. Yeah, that stuck with me. Protect your downside.
What I loved about Broadway Theatre Project is they always kind of pushed you to work on your weaknesses, which is super hard in high school when you're performing in front of your peers. But that is something she instilled in me, was like, Ashley, you were born to sing, but you can dance and you can act and you have to work on it, but you can do it. In my second year, I'll never forget, she cast me as one of the leads in Don't Tell Mama. And it was a big dancey number and I was so freaked out, and I went up to her, which I don't even know why I had the guts to do so, but I said, I don't think this is right for me. I don't think this, I have to, you know, dance like you and sing like somebody else. And she goes, Ashley, why would you put yourself in a box when the rest of the world is gonna do that for you? And I still get choked up thinking about it, because she's right. As we all know, the world will put you where they think you are, but if you tell the world who you are, then you get to choose. And in that moment, I remember being so moved, and I went and I learned the choreography, and I have to say, I looked kind of good doing it.
Please, sir, if you run into my mama, don't reveal my indiscretion. Give a working girl a chance.
And I was proud of myself. Did I grow up to be a FOSSE dancer? No, but I grew up to be me. And I danced on a Broadway stage. I tapped on a Broadway stage. I've done monologues on a Broadway stage, all because she told me I could at a very, very young age. I will never forget that gift that she gave me, the gift of just to be myself.
In an Orlando Sentinel interview, Ann noted that at the Broadway Theatre Project, we teach the emotional and the psychological ramifications of having to sell yourself and how to handle it. And we teach the political side. Now, she didn't just mean the politics of show business, but also life. See, at BTP, the students have often studied material that did not shy away from the complex issues, and in particular, material with a strong social conscience.
Peace.
Say it again.
Peace.
Say it again. Power to the people.
Peace.
Say it again. Power to the people.
Peace.
Say it again. Power to the people.
Peace.
Free at last. Power to the people.
Peace.
Free at last. Free at last. I have a dream that one day my 4 little children will be able to live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country.
With malice toward none and charity for all, let us strive to bind up the nation's wounds and to help out those who have borne this battle and their widows and their children.
And left, that's the sound of the man working on the chain. Manhole in his immortal hands, the power to abolish all human power and all human life. Get back!
Black men
and white men,
Jews,
Gentiles,
Protestants,
and Catholics will be able to join hands and sing an old Negro spiritual. Free at last, free at last. Say, God Almighty, we are free at last.
I am not a drug addict.
I need your money. I could be out robbing and stealing right now. I don't want to be doing that, and I'm sure you don't want that either.
I'm sorry my clothes aren't clean.
I'm sorry I'm homeless.
I'm sorry I don't have a job.
I'm sorry I have to interrupt your afternoon.
But I don't have a choice. I have to ask for your help.
I can't change my life. You can.
Please.
Please, look in your hearts and do the right thing. Thank you.
Ann had a special way of sensing the exact thing one of her students needed to work on in that specific moment in order to continue their growth. And she would often give individual assignments, like handing a student a recording of a vintage I Love Lucy episode, or a Jack Cole dance piece from a TV variety show, and simply say, "Can you go learn this? I think it'll be great."
When I think about Ann Reinking, one of the many things I remember is her giving me some of the best advice, which was to become a triple threat. She said, if you can dance as well as you sing and act, you will always work. That advice has kept me in this business to this day. And I am forever grateful for the director she was to me, the choreographer, friend, and mentor, and for that advice.
Ann created this school basically to teach us to discipline ourselves and to show us, this is what professionals do. This is what it looks like. She took it very seriously, and she taught me to take myself and my art seriously. She was a model for, here's what making a living in the arts looks like. That left a huge impression on all of us because, at that age, you're just wondering, like, can I do this?
One of her other favorite expressions was, to be an artist is to be a salmon swimming upstream. You just are constantly swimming upstream, and maybe you're swimming upstream and it feels difficult because you're looking for a job, or you don't feel like your abilities are matching up with your aspirations. Or maybe it's an internal struggle. Maybe you're lucky enough to reach some level of quote unquote success where you feel like a little bit stable as an artist. You feel maybe financially stable, or you have some recognition or some fame. But even if you get to that place, you still have the internal struggle of your ego and your self-doubt, that stream, that current to swim up against. And but you just gotta keep doing it. If you're an artist, that's what you do.
I'm afraid that you'll play lonely games too. Games you can't win because you'll play against you. All alone, whether you like it or not. Alone will be something you'll be quite a lot.
We're all brought up with fairy tales. I have a real issue about fairy tales. I think fairy tales are good because of a lot of the imagery that's involved. Working out problems, how do you get to love, romantic love, which is the next step for a child. The only trouble is you've found romantic love, you quote-unquote live happily ever after. The quote I think should be, and they continue to solve their problems together.
I met Ann Reinking when I was 14 at the Musical Theatre Project, and my first impression of her, other than the fact that she was Ann Reinking, was her generosity and her light and her love for the work, for the art. She took me under her wing. I remember feeling like that, feeling a sense of, I just remember feeling there was an understanding that my life might change here, might be altered for the long run. And that's exactly what happened.
Dylis, you've just finished the pension, you're coming around?
There were so many moments in my career where it felt surreal that I was being allowed to do these roles that she did. The trumpet solo and Roxy Hart, Sweet Charity. And through that time working on these roles, she helped me. She allowed space for me to bring, Dylis into it, and at the same time gave me the juice and the history of what it originally was. Working on Roxy, for example, she would break down the monologue and take a little chunk over here and be like, okay, this is what I did, but on this little part over here, I feel like you have a little bit more Gwen in you over here, so I'm gonna give you what Gwen did here. So she just tailored it to me. And I mean, so now I feel like she's given me a gift of my Roxy.
From just some dumb mechanic's wife, I'm gonna be Roxy. Yes, who says that murder's not enough? And who, in case she doesn't hang, can say she started with a bang. Foxy, hush.
She's now part of the fabric of who we are. And that says a lot about who she was and still is.
Thank you. Yes.
It was amazing this past fall. We got to bring Ann Reinking in virtually to Texas State to do a masterclass with my students.
Recently had the pleasure of taking class with her again, and to have that moment to be back in a studio, whether it was Zoom or not.
When you're doing that flick kick, it's about the leg flashing out and returning. Yeah, it should be pum-pum, ta-tum, very fast.
Watching her love dancers, work with us, encourage us, give us positive feedback and constructive feedback.
So you try and hold that for as long as you can, then boom.
I mean, the woman just loved dance. She loved dancers and artists, and I will remember her deeply in my heart as changing my life and changing the lives of many of my close friends.
This woman that has inspired so many and inspired me and shaped who I am as an artist, to get to then watch my students learn from her and get to experience her brilliance. It was a magical moment.
Everybody that she has let into this program, she knows. She knows by name, and she's watching all of us. And it's a lesson where I was like, real icons, real legends, real stars, don't miss a thing. And they're always watching and looking to who inspires them and who they can inspire.
I remember when I first moved to New York and I had one of my first auditions, and I had Ann Reinking's name on my resume, and when I finished my audition they said, "You would have made Annie proud."
Moment you think you know where you stand in that one moment. Things that you're sure of slips from your hands.
I just feel so blessed and so thankful to her for the gifts that she gave us. You know, she had so much talent, and she decided to put a program together and share all of her knowledge and all of the people that she worked with us.
And so I'd like to introduce you, Julie Andrews.
And I know she's going to be greatly missed, but her legacy is going to live on through all of us.
I ended up getting a pretty hefty scholarship to be able to go to the program, which was the only way I could go. And it was then that this world for me as an artist, and this like the real foundation really began. Ann Reinking was someone who when I was there, she saw something in me that and here's the thing, I didn't really, I will say, in my teenagerness, if you will, I didn't quite know the magnitude of who I was really working with. And I'm actually glad that that was the case, because I was able to really be me. And so it was not about this, it was just really this like artist working with a teacher, a mentor. And in my head, you know, now I look back and I'm like a young artist working with literally a legend. just mind blowing.
Coming here this year, because it means not only a lot to me, but I hope it means so much to you someday when you're holding your own child and you remember something that you learned here that can help your child. Because the stuff you're learning has more to do with singing, dancing, and acting. It has to do with life itself.
I called her Mama Reinking. The people who went to MTP, what later became BTP, and if you were one of Annie's kids, you were in. And she trusted you, and she gave you everything, and she sure gave me a lot. She gave me a lot.
Once you became one of her kids, she never made you feel like a stranger.
Hi. Hi, Mom. How are you? David, we love him. He's a good boy. He has good manners.
David the Broad. This is your mom. I don't know. It's weird.
My first year in New York, I attended Gwen's memorial, and it was at least a year since I'd seen her. And the moment I walked into the auditorium, I looked down the aisle and I saw Ann, and I was expecting to walk up and interrupt her and try to remind her of who I was. But at least 100 yards down the aisle, she turned around and said, "David," and ran up to me and gave me a hug. And after that, I would see FOSSE a few times and hang out after the show by the stage door, and she'd come out and we would talk like we were best friends, catching up about old times.
I am one of hundreds, maybe thousands, of artists and theater makers that have become Ann Reinking's legacy and will continue to be her legacy. And what's beautiful when I think about style and Ann's style, and as a dancer, style just becomes part of you. It becomes your style because it's in your body. And all those summers imitating Ann and trying to move like her, she's now in all of us, in the way that we move. And it's easy to see her in the mirror every once in a while. Like every time I try and, you know, like isolate a hip or a shoulder or a finger or a focus even, that's Ann. That's her in me.
How wonderful to admire your peers and your friends, both artistically and as people. And that was also a great gift that Ann bestowed on all of us, because you just won't find people that are more hardworking than anybody who went to those camps. And we loved it, you know. because we learned really early that the joy is in the work. It's not in the accolades or the reviews. It's in the actual rehearsal room and every chance you get to step on stage.
That I heard her say over and over and over again, the joy is in the work, and we found so much joy.
What I've held on to is Ann's quote, "The joy is in the work," because I think about that with what I bring to work today. And by work, I mean everything. I mean, what I'm choosing for my livelihood, the joy in the teaching, the joy in seeing the growth of the little ones, the joy of all the creation and performing that I got to do in theme parks and touring, the work of being a mom and a wife and a member of society. That is valuable work, and I've never let that leave me. That has stayed with me, even as my path, got pretty uncertain. Even as there was struggle for me, I never forgot that lesson that Ann imparted to me.
She was influential and dynamic and stoic and graceful and loving. She was Ann Reinking, and she touched so many of our hearts. She touched so many of our lives, changing our lives, changing every part of who we are.
I know for a fact that if I hadn't met Annie, I would not have had the confidence and skills to accomplish so many of the dreams I've been able to in my career. Thank you, Annie.
It was like masterclass of the gods, or in your case, the goddesses. I'll never forget the power, the eloquence, the grace, and the precision with which you gave us our lives as young artists, taught us the value of work, and that you stay until the work is done.
Well, Annie, we want to carry on your legacy. You'll always be with us. Your unparalleled work ethic is with me today. I will hold on to that. And I want to thank you for teaching me to celebrate the work, to celebrate the highs. After curtain call, you used to invite us into your dressing room to celebrate. You'd say, "Good work, everybody. Great job. Now, let's all have a toast." And you'd pop open the champagne, and we'd all toast each other and toast the work. Thank you, Annie. Cheers to you.
So Annie, I know you were up there beveling away, dancing with all the other legends and amazing people that we have lost. Know that you are in my heart and in my soul and in my mind, and I love you.
And my tribute to you is the space that you created for me and so many of us when we were young. I don't even think I knew how much I needed it, but I can trace so many parts of my life now back to that influence, starting when I was 14. And this is what I'll say. I use those skills every day in my work, in my life, in my mindset and fortitude. Your example will not be forgotten, and I know all of us will carry it forward. Thank you, Ann.
Thank you, Annie. Thank you for being who you are. Thank you for dedicating your life to the beautiful art form of dance and dancers and storytelling. And see you up there. I love you. I hope you're dancing with Bob and Gwen.
So I just want to take a moment to say to Ann Reinking, the icon, the legend, the inspirer, the mentor, and my friend, thank you. Rest in joy, rest in peace, and rest in the most dynamic world that you know how to create. You will be missed.
Just seeing all of these posts from people telling their stories, whether they're funny little anecdotes or touching stories. Everyone has such amazing things to say about you, and it says so much about who you were as a person, as well as the legendary artist that you are. And I hope you know that. Thank you. I love you.
I want to thank you. We love you, Annie. We got Annie.
Annie, you will never be forgotten, and we will miss you always.
We love you, Ann. You will forever be in our hearts.
I love you, Anne. We'll never, ever forget you.
And Annie, like I said before, your legs are so long that you can be dancing down here on earth while you're up there in heaven.
On Sunday, December 20th, Annie was laid to rest. The same day, I went to see my family and I parked my car on the street and looked out my window and saw that I parked directly in front of one single bird of paradise flower. And as I stared at it, something inside me just felt that it was Annie. It was Annie telling me somehow that she was okay, that she had transitioned. And I shared that with a couple of my friends, one of them being Anna White, who I met at BTP. And the next day she sent me a CNN Ann Reinking in picture article. And the very first picture that appeared as I scrolled down was a picture I had never seen before of Annie. And it was a very young Annie holding a single bird of paradise flower. She gave me that sign that she was at peace and she had transitioned and she's watching over us and she will forever be a bird of paradise.
Sometimes people leave you halfway through the wood.
Others may deceive you. You decide what's good. You decide alone. But no one is alone.
Mother isn't here now.
Who knows what she said?
Nothing's quite so clear now.
Fear you've lost your way.
You are not alone. Believe me, no one is alone. No one is alone. Believe me.
Just a finger, say the slightest word. Something's bound to linger.
Be heard.
No one acts alone. Careful, no one is alone.
Farewell. Thou art too dear for my possessing. And like enough, thou knowest thy estimate. The charter of thy worth gives thee releasing. My bonds in thee are all determinate. For how do I hold thee, but by thy granting? And for that riches, where is my deserving? The cause of this fair gift in me is wanting. And so my patent back again is swerving. Thyself thou gavest, thy own worth then not knowing, or me, to whom thou gavest it, else mistaking. So thy great gift, upon misprision growing, comes home again, on better judgment making.
Sometimes people leave you halfway through the wood. Do not let it grieve you. No one leaves for good. You are not alone. No one is alone.
Hold her to the light now.
Let her see the glow. Things will be alright now. Tell her what you know.
Thus have I had thee as a dream doth flatter. In sleep a queen, but waking no such matter.
Please join us in a moment of silence to honor our teacher, the unforgettable Ann Reinking, and to honor the other members of our MTP and BTP family so lovingly assembled by Ann, who've also passed on.
I was going to tell a dirty joke. No, I can't. No, I can't.
Is constantly with me, and I just want to thank you. I feel so honored and so blessed to have worked with you and had the connection I had, really. And Eric, thank you for doing this. This is amazing. What a treat. I love you.
Thank you so much. I love you too.
attended a summer program called the Broadway Theatre Project, run by the legendary Ann Reinking. Well, I'm supposed to go to college, but that's not definite. Great! Meet me here tomorrow after lunch and prepare your best 32 bars. Okay,
Heaven, we're in heaven.
And the cares that hang around me through the week
seem to vanish like a gambler's lucky streak.
When we're out together,
dancing cheek to cheek.